Okay, thank you. So, welcome to the webinar. I apologize that you can't enjoy your lunch, and in this time for me it's evening. So we start with a little introduction of my person, of the brand, of the company. Then some basics from me. I think my basics. Why we use hand structures. Which hand structure for which conditions, and then I present our kits, and at the end some questions and answers if you have. I think you have, and I will show up live a little bit in the back with the hand structures. So let's start with to introduce myself. I'm 46 years old. I was biathlete 12 years to 24. Then I began to study mechanical engineering. And during this time, I started as wax tech for the German B team in 2003. And 2005, I changed to the World Cup team of biathlon Switzerland. And then from 2010, from the Olympics in Vancouver, I was the head of this team with 4 guys, include me. And from this time on, I start to develop my own hand structures, and this was also the beginning for the company. I let it produce here in the company, and it was the start for the company too with the hand structures. Yeah, and after the Olympics this year, I resigned in Switzerland and start in May within the company SRB roller ski. We produce also roller ski, like you see. So to the basics, this is what I think. You can have a different opinion, but this is what I think. Important is the grain and the snow moisture. When you look at the snow, this is the main points to characterize the snow. Everything else are indicators: the humidity, the snow temperature, the air temperature, and so on. So if it's cold, you see the grain is hard. If it's longer cold, the grain is always hard, big, and it breaks to smaller and smaller. So you have fine snow, fine old snow. If it's sunny, the grain begins to melt and connect with other ones to a bigger grain. I have some mistakes here, see, and more moisture comes into the snow over the day. If it's cloudy, the conditions change barely. If it's clear, the temperature rises up in the morning and fall down in the afternoon. So, and if the humidity is high, you have more moisture in the snow. So these are points you don't need just for hand structure. You need it for the whole waxing, for the preparation of the ski. So this is a small protocol from you see from December 2018 to show you how important hand structures are. We were in the pre-season in Sweden in a training camp, and with my 3 guys from the wax techs, we made a test. How fast is the ski with paraffin? In Germany, in Europe, you can't wax also with fluor anymore. So we used paraffin HF just with the hand structure, just with powder, and the full setup with everything. So at the pre-test, we took a drag with 10 seconds, and we test for base wax, for powders, and for hand structures. And in the real test, we took the best ones of all and made 3 heats. And the average time you can see, with the paraffin, where the normal time with the hand structure, we were over 2/10 faster. With floor powder, this is no surprise. We're around 5/10 faster and a little bit more with the full setup. So this sounds not many time, but when you count it up to a 10K competition, which needs around 22 and 27 minutes. It depends from the conditions, if it's men or women and so on, but I took 25 minutes. So it goes up to nearly 35 minutes and over a minute with powder for sure. But with the hand structure, we are faster over 30 seconds, half a minute. So it's not, it's important. It's important. So this, for me, is the reason to use hand structures, to reduce the adhesion, to bring air under the ski, and this makes the ski faster. So Jacob asked me a couple of minutes before, is there a problem to interact the grinds with the hand structures? And it's not, because the grinds are, for me, the microstructure, and the macrostructure are the hand structures. You see the difference from the cuts. It's a little bit more as in real, but you see you are deeper with the hand structure. You have bigger gaps, and so you can use the hand structure on every grind. So now the question, what I use for which conditions? And different structures are for different conditions for sure. And the most important things are for me the cutting angle. You can see on the pictures, it depends, our structures are between 60 degrees and mostly 90 degrees and also 120. You feel it under the ski. The bigger the angle, you feel more free to ski under the feet. And if you used hand structures before, most companies took 60-degree angle, sharp cut, and just changed the gap between the peaks. So the distance between the peaks are 0.3, 0.5 for Swixx, for example, and 1.0. And this is then for cold, for universal, for wet, but it isn't. It is just for the customers. For our hand structures are mostly with 90 degrees. It feels more free under the ski. It makes more sense with the grain of the snow, and the 120 you can use also real in the cold. Well, here you see the next point, the cutting direction. Normally you use linear grinds. It doesn't matter if you have some grooves over it or not. It changes a little bit, but mostly you are linear, and this is more for coarse grained or more wet in the snow. And if you use screws, you have not a linear direction in the ski direction, and it's for fine snow and also for artificial snow. Next point is the space between the cuts. This is what I told you before. On the right picture you see, this is from peak to peak, the difference, and this is what the other brands use as difference between cold and wet conditions. So, but the cut is the same. So you see, if you have more space, it's for dry and cold snow, more longer cuts for wetter snow. But this is our USP. We have the cutting angle with 120 degrees, or from 90 to 120 degrees, and this is real good feeling under the ski, and it makes speed too. So these are our two devices. The small one on the left side, you see, you just press the image one-to-one in the base of the ski, and the big one on the right side, it's with a gear wheel, and the gear wheel makes the expand the cuts and also the gaps between. So you have more for weather conditions with the transmission, or if you have more moisture in the snow. Yeah, this is what I told you in the last few minutes. Bigger cut angles for colder conditions, narrow cuts for more moisture in the snow, straight direction for bigger snow grains, screws for fine snow to bring air under the ski, and more or longer cuts for weather conditions. This is to present our kits. It is just important to show you, but you don't need to have that. You have to start with a small one of structures to figure it out for you. What is for what condition the best one? What works for me, and make your own experience. So better is to start with a few hand structures and get more and more if you build up or raise up your experience, your knowledge. So the first one is the starter kit with three structures and a small device. Included is also a suitcase, a small one, and then we have 3 comfort kits with the bigger device for 3 versions, for cold, for universal, and for warm conditions. And these are the best sellers. The starter kit and also the comfort kit for universal, sometimes the warm. And the rest is more for professional wax tags, like the HSG2 premium kit. You have 12 structures, but you need 2 years experience to work with all of that. If you take one structure, you can use with transmission. You have longer cuts, shorter cuts. You can combine with another roll. You can use it on the front ski. You can use it on the back ski. You can use the combination. So you have so many possibilities to use that it's hard enough to work with 3 or 5 structures at the beginning, and the rest is at the end the World Cup kit with 30 structures. But this is just not important, I think, at the beginning for you. Oh, here a small overview for the small starter kit. This is the best to try to begin. Next one are the comfort kits. Like I said, with warm edition or uni and cold. A premium kit, and always also the World Cup kit. You have the gear wheels with that included, and manual and the suitcase and so on. And in the World Cup kit, you have both hand structure devices. So this is a little overview where you can use the hand structure included in the kits. And yeah, like you see, starter kit, it's right from the beginning on the right one to start into this into the hand structure world. You have a cold structure, you have a medium structure, you have a warm structure. You can combine it. You can use it on the front ski. You can use it on the back ski. So you can use it 2/3 of the ski. There are so many possibilities to work with that it's enough to try at the beginning. And you to compare with the comfort kit universal, you see it. You have two more structures. It's closer. It's not always this part. You can use also the cold one in the wet and dry, because sometimes you have a bigger crane in wet conditions, and the cold one works also very well. And so this is what I mean. You have to figure it out, what is for you the best. And yeah, the other comfort kit is for warm conditions. You see, with one structure, it goes more to the coldness and brighter range of the hand structures. So it was very fast from me. I want to use the time to show you live the hand structures a little bit. I hope you can see my wax table. This is an old relic from my time in Switzerland. Here we have the both devices. Oh, this is the big one with the gear wheel. You have a guide roll. And
Frank,
yeah.
You want to turn off your desktop share?
Oh, sorry.
Then we just see more of you.
Now?
Perfect.
Thank you. So again, this is the bigger hand structure device with a gear wheel and with the pins to use it on every ski. It doesn't matter if you have a Fisher, Matches, or Atomic or whatever crossing node. You can use it on every ski. Also the small one. You have also a guiding roll. You can take it out. The guiding roll and can use it together with another. Sorry. Use it together with another hand structure in combination. It doesn't matter if you start with one with these or these. It doesn't matter. You make a same image on the ski, and so you can combine it. You can take it with the guide roll for the front ski, the narrow hand structure, and the wide one for the back, or you turn it. And you have to figure it out what is working. All we gave you is to try at the beginning in these conditions. So you can see it's easy to handle. You take the machine, put it on the ski. It's really fun and easy to use. You press it inside, and you're finished. And if you want to take another one in the back ski, put it on, press it in, and the best is if you're ready, the competitor is ready with the start and comes back. You take the iron the ski, and the hand structure is out, and you can start new with the hand structure or for the next competition. It's not like a grind. It's cut it out. This is pressed in, and you take it out.
Very good. Frank, let's, we have some questions here in the chat, and I think the best format would be to, I'll request to unmute that person who asked the question, and then they can ask you directly. So first question is from Andy. So I sent a unmute request to Andy here about dirty snow. So Andy, if you want to ask the question about structure considerations for dirty snow, go ahead.
Yeah, Frank, I know that certain structures pick up dirt, and the ski gets, I know that certain structures pick up dirt and the ski just gets slower and slower throughout a race because it's picking up dirt. What can we do in structuring to not pick up dirt? What should we think about?
This is right, but you can't do anything that it doesn't happen. But with our hand structures, with a wide angle, the dirt is not it fixes not in the cuts. So with a big angle, the dirt is not so in the cuts. You understand what I mean? Sorry. When you use the cuts with 60 degrees or the narrow ones, the small angles, then you have a small gap, and this is where you collect the dirt into the base. When you have a bigger angle, this is not the problem. You have not so many dirt in the ski.
Okay.
Next question is from Spencer regarding using the terminology cut. Spencer, I'm gonna unmute you here. If you want to ask your question, here's your chance.
Hey, Frank, I think you kind of addressed this right at the end of your presentation there, but you'd use the term cut a lot instead of press. And I've typically heard the term press in relation to hand structure. So, how quickly does the structure come out with waxing? And are any of these structures, maybe some of the more aggressive structures, are they actually cut into the ski such that you would have to stone grind a ski?
Yeah, it's more press. It's not when you see the base. It's the plastic bounce, and you press it and put it beside, and pull it beside, and when you iron it, it goes back to the normal, and so it's pressed, and it's really so you iron it, and the hand structure is out.
Thank you.
Was it the answer you want to hear?
Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next question is from Robert here regarding testing and how many times can you keep using it without redoing the structure. So I'm going to unmute Robert here now. Robert, if you want to ask your question, go ahead. Otherwise, I can read your question from the chat.
Sure. Hi, Frank. Thanks for a great presentation. It's been very interesting. You answered one of my questions, which was, can we get the structure out with an hot iron waxing? So that's good to know. But my other question is, if I set up a ski for testing different structures, how long can I use that ski without redoing it? Can I do it multiple days, or should I redo it each time?
You mean how long the hand structure stays in the base?
Yeah, and that it's still worthwhile testing it.
Yeah, it depends from the conditions. If you have icy conditions, if you have hard grains, then you lose a little bit the hand structures, but not completely. You have it in when you finish the competition, but you see it's a little bit deformed. But it's in the function, it works, and just with ironing you get it out completely.
Okay, great, thanks.
Thank you.
This is something that we had in our conversation yesterday, Frank. Something that you brought up, and I figured I would bring up as a question. How do the SRB tools compare to a lot of the tools that us Americans are used to using? So I often see a lot of like the Speedy Ski Roller from Finland, or the Swix tools, or the Toko tools that are passed around, or the Red Creek tools. Those are very popular. How do the SRB tools and rollers compare to these tools that a lot of these folks here are used to using?
Over my time as Waxtech, I had many tools. I had Red Creek, I had Swix, I had Toko, and it's just like I said at the beginning, or they changed just the distance between the cuts. So, but they have always the same angle when you see. I don't know what is what you can get in the USA from which tools, but in Europe we are the only one from who produce with different angles, with combination, with cut directions, and with the gaps, and with the grooves, with the size of the grooves, and so this is what is our USP. And we are in the World Cup cross country. We have more than 20 nations that use our stuff, and in biathlon more than 26, I think. 26 for sure, perhaps more. I don't know.
That's awesome. That's good to hear. And you guys were at the last Olympics as well. We might touch on that in a minute here. That sounds, can talk about the crew that SRB sent up to the Olympics. We have a question from David Johnson here about special considerations for using structure in conjunction with liquid waxes. So I'm going to ask to unmute David here. And David, you can ask your question here. There you go. If you'd like to.
Thank you for the presentation. It's really interesting. My high school coach, we've kind of transitioned to using just liquid waxes. And any special consideration for using structure with liquid waxes as opposed to hot waxing?
This is a good question, because anyone figure it out which is the right time point to bring the hand structure on the ski. It's not for ironing in front of the ironing powder, because then I go on the base with 170 degrees and the hand structure is out. But with liquid, this is the best one. Before you bring the finished liquid, you make the hand structure, and you have no mechanical impact with the liquid, so you can bring the hand structure on the base, and then you bring off on the liquids.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, while we're waiting for some more questions here, perhaps it might be interesting for a lot of the folks here if you would perhaps describe a day in World Cup service, or perhaps if you talk about the experience of heading off to the Olympics, or perhaps the experience of the other SRB employees who went off to the Olympics. Perhaps what a day servicing at the World Cup looks like. Maybe that's pretty fun.
I can do it. I had 4 Olympics, starting with Vancouver in 2010, 2014 in Sochi, 2018 in Pyeongchang, and my last one last season in Beijing. And always it was special. In Vancouver, we have many changings in the weather conditions, and then in Pyeongchang or in Sochi and Pyeongchang, it was nearly the same. You have artificial snow, and because you had no new snow there in the height, the air was dry, and it was sunny over the day. The grains melted and connected in the evening, and break out and melted and connected again. And so it was change for us to try our stuff. And it was not my stuff at this time. It was my stuff, but not for the company. And we had developed hand structures there. It was forbidden to sell for SRB what I had, and it works very well. And we, especially in Sochi, we had the problem. You tested the whole day in the sun, and the competition started at 6 or 7 in the evening, and then the sun was out, and in half an hour it was 5 degrees colder. And so it was important to test in the early days before the first competition started, to find out or to figure out what was working well. And yeah, now in Beijing it was very cold, between -15 and -18 degrees. But we used also hand structures because the normal ones, I told you that it is an example. I don't want to talk bad about Swix hand structures or so, or other ones. But if you have a small angle, it feels sticky under the ski. And we had with our hand structures, we had a big range to use it all the time, and we used hand structures in -17 degrees conditions. So I think we were one of the small countries that were using hand structures in these conditions. So, and for a typical day in a World Cup, I talk for biathlon. Yeah? We go to the stadium, and then we take the temperature and the humidity and the snow moisture, and then we figure out how becomes the weather in the competition time, and then we figure out which wax we take, which powder we take, which hand structure, and then we prepare everything. And nearly 1.5 hours in front of the start, we test everything. And 2 guys from us 4, 2 guys tested the material, the hand structures, the ground, and the powders and the finish. And 2 guys go on the track with the athletes and tested the grinds and the ski from the athletes. And around 1 hour in front of the competition, we come back to the cabin and started to work on the competition ski, the best ski with the best ground, with the best powder. Mostly we use the hand structure over the powder, and that it's not important for you because you can't use floor powders anymore. But for us, it was important, the time point when you press the hand structure inside, when it becomes hardened, the powder, then when you wait too long, the powder surface break. And so it is important that it's a little bit soft, the surface, to bring the hand structure in, and then it hardened the base. Yeah, and perhaps liquids. I was not a friend of liquids because mostly you have in wet condition it makes sense for me, but in universal conditions or cold conditions, you have the problem with the liquid inside. It takes the dirt more as without liquid. This was my experience. So it can be for different people, it can be different. So, but this was my experience, and so we used it not so much the liquids, because you have the possibility to use powder, and if you bring on the base the powder homogen, then you have have a totally clear base, and it works better than with liquid over the time. This, how I said, it was my opinion. So, and after that, we gave out the competition skis. Went out to the competition and gave times and were cheering. And after that, we came back. Sometimes we had something to celebrate, mostly not, because it was Switzerland. And after that, we clean all the skis. We ground it back with normal hot wax, and then we went back to the hotel. This was a normal day in the wax cabin for our team.
Thank you for the insight. And I want to touch on that point about the angles and the impact that being able to offer different angles for these structure tools had at Beijing. In those really cold conditions, you were able to still use structure tools and have them be effective because of being able to offer a variety of angles. I think that's something that we haven't had in the US yet. A lot of people associate structures with really warm and really wet conditions. And that's perhaps because we've had a limited amount of angles available to us, mostly 90-degree angles in our structures, and being able to offer these different angles will allow structures to be used in colder conditions, and perhaps even at used more at the national championship this year in Houghton, where it's usually pretty cold. So that's pretty exciting that we're going to be bringing them in here. Andy had a question about differences between artificial snow and natural snow, and it looks like Andy's already unmuted, so go ahead.
Yeah, first of all, to fill in with Robert and Spencer about how long the structure will last, a lot of that is also determined by the base of the skis you're using. Some of the soft bases, warm skis generally accept a press structure much easier than some of the cold hard bases. So between your skis and skiers, you might see the structure go in really well on one ski and not well on another. The harder bases, the colder bases are much harder in accepting structures, but once they're in there, they generally last longer. So that's one small thing. Frank, what can you tell us about modern day artificial snow and how the crystals are shaped, and what structure tools are the keys in artificial snow, if you have any generalizations, considering we're doing so much more racing on artificial snow?
Yeah. So yeah, like you know, perhaps the snow is every time changing. When you have new snow, and after 4 hours it's complete other snow. And so we made a difference between old snow and new snow. But new snow was just falling snow. After one day, it was old snow. So you have a snowflake with a big shape, with a soft core, and it depends from the conditions. When it was warm, then the snowflake was melting back to a small grain, and perhaps it melts to water and combined other grains in the ground. If you have artificial snow, you have very small hard sticks. This is the reason because why artificial snow has just more snow moisture inside, because it's very compact, and between the water can be between in the gaps between. Yeah, and so, but it changes also the time. It becomes more hardened. It becomes drier after a time. It depends from the air humidity. It depends from the temperature. If we have cold all the time, so you have the artificial snow, it stays all the time the same. when it becomes warmer, it melting, but stays compact. And you don't see the difference, but it changed. And the same is for old snow, when you have very fine snow, small grains, and there's no change to melting because all the day is cold, then it stays how it is. When you have clear days, it means the warm comes over the day and got back because there is no cloud to hold it back. It goes away, and it melting in the morning or over the lunchtime, and later it will be frozen. So this is the point why you have to realize that the snow is always changing. And for the hand structure you ask, for compact snow, like artificial snow, you use more smaller cuts with a big angle, or if it's big corn, like it was in Vancouver the whole time. Big grains, they had problems to hold the snow together and bring salt inside and so on. And then when the grain is big, you need small fine cuts from the hand structure. So you can't say this is for wet conditions and this is for dry conditions. You have to figure it out, because it's a game how you use it with the grain and with the moisture. Is it the answer you hoped for?
No, it's good.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question from Scott here about having less skis for testing. Let's see, Scott, you're already unmuted. All right, you're ready to go.
Yeah, the question was just for skiers that don't have time to test, any advice for structures or strategies that carry the least liability?
The strategy will be to test in front to find your experience with that. But you have to know, when I use this hand structure, it works in these conditions, and then you can say, okay, tomorrow I have these conditions, and so I try it. And the recommend I gave you, and you can watch for or look for. It's a point you can do, but you have to figure it out for yourself. But normally, if you don't have time, you have to do it in front of the competition to find your right hand structure, and then you have the experience to do the right one.
Scott, if I could just point in from, we generally think, looking at most skiers' skis and most junior skis, most skiers have too little structure. And I would say, as a general rule, if you're gonna try to calculate this all beforehand, which you're forced to do as a coach quite often, is that if you're gonna err, you want to err on the side of slightly too much structure and err on the side of too hard of a wax. If you're unsure, a harder wax versus a colder wax is a less liability, and slightly too much structure versus too little structure is less of a liability. So yes, so that is my 10 cents worth on the liability issue of trying to wing this in a wax room, sometimes 100 miles away from where your race is going to be, and dealing with a fleet of kids' skis that have nothing in common with a professional race ski.
To make the perfect hand structure, back to the question before if you use the hand structure you should take for the universal conditions, if you take that, it will be better as without. And it doesn't matter if it's the right one. Perhaps you find a little bit better setup if you combine it or if you take another one, but it will be better as without.
So jumping in again, as I tend to do, in your starter kit, you have 3 wheels, or in the starter kit. So you have in there, you have your cold, your warm, and your universal. Could that be said?
Yeah, it is in. The cold one is a 120-degree hand structure with a big distance, with a 2 millimeters space between the tips, and it makes small cuts, and you can use it in the cold. You can use it when you take the transmission. You can use it also in the wet, but it works for sure in the cold. You have the screw. It is V743. It's inside. It takes for universal conditions. It works in artificial snow. It works also in wet conditions. But it can be that you find a better one. When you take the small, the fine one, then you use it perhaps in a coarse grained condition or in wet conditions.
I want to touch on something that wasn't covered in the presentation. It's covered in the SRB manual. We've gone over shapes and we've gone over coarseness versus fineness for the structures. Would you be able to give a quick note on materials? So the structure rollers are made from brass and stainless steel. If you could maybe go over why brass, why stainless steel, and what conditions those would be used for. Since it wasn't in the presentation, I figured I'd bring it up for anyone wondering.
This is a question I heard many times, and the answer is simple. When they started to produce the brass ones, they don't have stainless steel. It was out, and so they used brass. And then the customer said, "Oh, okay, this is the brass one," and so it becomes. It would be just to make a difference between the hand structures for the customers to say this is the brass one and this is the stainless steel. But it doesn't matter what material you take. The brass is a little bit softer, and but stainless steel is a little bit harder. But for working on the plastic base, it doesn't matter because everything is more hard as the plastic. So it doesn't matter which material you have, but for sure, I heard the question many times.
Thank you, thank you. We have more questions. This is your chance to ask. We have iPad is asking a question. I think iPad has their hand raised. The mysterious iPad. Go ahead and unmute yourself or type your message in the chat here, and we can answer your question.
What is the length of the test track that you'd use to determine which is the best structure?
For which condition?
Any condition. So if you're in a cold condition, do you use a 50-meter track? Or if you're in a warm condition, do you use a 50-meter track to determine that you have the fastest structure placed in the ski?
Yeah, you don't have one hand structure that works in every condition. So it depends which, how I said, which size of grain, which snow moisture, which it depends from the conditions. So you can say, okay, you can say this works in cold and this works in wet conditions, but you don't have one hand structure who works on every place.
That wasn't, I believe his question was, now you have the structures on your test fleet to test. How do you test? Is it feel? Is it speed traps?
It's both. Oh, sorry. It's both. We tested in speed, and we tested also from the feeling. When we test just also with the wax, we go on the competition track, and in biathlon it's possible to use the whole track. And then we tested at the beginning in speed, and after that we go on the track and try the different parts of the track, what is working, what is not working, and you take an average and say, okay, we decide for this hand structure, or we decide for this wax.
Thank you. That answers the question.